Throughout history, the world has seen amazing speakers. Eloquent speakers who have the power to captivate millions of people with their words have also a huge responsibility. We have seen them change the world either for better or for worse. And in this video, I'm gonna present to you the best speeches of all times. Quickly, before we jump into the list, here are 2 side notes on how I compiled this best of. Number 1, I excluded all movie speeches. I know there are amazingly powerful movie speeches out there, but one of the reasons why they do seem so powerful is that they are the climax to the entire plot of the movie. On top of that, they are acted out really well, they have music in the background, so it's just not fair to compare those speeches to real life speeches. And secondly, I excluded all motivational speeches. There are truly great motivational speakers out there, but if you compare them to the impact that other speeches had throughout the history of mankind, I don't think they stand the test of time. And with that, let's kick it off. Speech number 1 is John F. Kennedy, "Ask what you can do for your country." This speech was given by John F. Kennedy during his inauguration in 1961, and in order to understand the impact of that speech, you have to keep in mind the situation that the US was in during that time. The Vietnam War was going on, the US on top of that found themselves in a more and more complicated situation with Russia and the arms race around the Cold War. And into this difficult era, a young, handsome, charismatic leader gets into power. So naturally, the entire world was curious, what kind of leader would John F. Kennedy be? And he gave a first glimpse into that during his inaugural address. He talks about how we need to move past the pure focus on firepower and instead replace that with a focus on maintenance of international relations and helping each other. And this focus on helping one another is the common thread through the entire speech. Of course, slowly building up to a climax that then shaped the mindset of generations to come.
The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
I personally think that this is a fantastic example of somebody being a statesman while at the same time being a motivational speaker. JFK managed to inspire a whole nation to roll up their sleeves and go to work for a greater cause. The second speech on our list is by one of the greatest speakers of all times, Winston Churchill, and his blood, sweat and tears speech. When Winston Churchill delivered this speech to the House of Commons back in 1940, he had just been elected Prime Minister, and the topic on everyone's minds, of course, was World War II. What England needed back then was a strong Prime Minister, and Winston Churchill was exactly the right man for that task. His goal was to get the population ready for tough times to come, promising them victory but not being able to tell them when exactly victory will arise. And I think there has never been a phrase in the history of mankind that captivates this horror and this terror of ongoing war and battle better than the simple 3 words: blood, sweat and tears.
I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I will say, it is to wage war by sea, land and air, with all our might, and with all the strength that God can give us, to wage war against a monstrous tyranny never surpassed in the dark and lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy.
I recommend that you go and listen to the speech in its entirety because it's truly inspirational, and I will put a link to it in the description down below. And if you're already down there, make sure to subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this in the future. The third speech on our list is maybe the most quoted speech of all times. It is Martin Luther King, "I Have a Dream." At first glance, Martin Luther King is an unlikely man to end up on this list of best speeches of all times. In fact, he is the only speaker on this list that is not a professional politician, and yet he managed to shape the world through his words alone, more than most other people. On this beautiful day in August 1963, more than 300,000 people joined Martin Luther King during his civil rights protest. And the whole thing culminated in Martin Luther King's speech, where he addressed this massive audience and shared with them his vision of what they're trying to accomplish here. And it was a vision of love, of peace, of brotherhood and equality.
Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
The words that he shared that day were incredibly carefully chosen and incredibly important during this time of turmoil. If you have this many people in motion and they all want to make a difference, it is important that they have one leader who tells them into which direction to channel their energy. Everyone agrees that the civil rights movement wouldn't have been the same without Martin Luther King, which really just goes to show the incredible power of a charismatic speaker. Unfortunately, Martin Luther King found an untimely death, which brings me to speech number 4 on our list, Bobby Kennedy and his call for peace. This speech was given by Bobby Kennedy on the night when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and in it he addresses a crowd in Indianapolis. This was an incredibly difficult and yet very important speech to give, because the crowd was not aware yet that Martin Luther King had been killed. So it was up to Bobby Kennedy to deliver this terrible news, and he did it in the most humane and compassionate way possible.
What we need in the United States is not division. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another. Feeling of justice toward those who still suffer within our country, whether they be white or whether they be black.
I find this speech incredibly moving, especially when you keep in mind that this was all improvised. Bobby Kennedy in this situation didn't have the time to sit down for days or maybe weeks and tweak his words. Instead, he chose to just speak from the heart. On that night of Martin Luther King's assassination, there were riots all over the US. But no riots happened that night in Indianapolis. And a lot of people attribute that to Bobby Kennedy and his powerful address of the people. Speech number 5 is Theodore Roosevelt, the man in the arena. Now this might be my favorite speech of all times. And in fact I have the most famous part of it hanging on my wall right here. I think nobody has better addressed the struggle of fighting for something, trying to accomplish something against all odds, better than Theodore Roosevelt in that speech. He delivered the speech more than 100 years ago in 1910 back in France, and with it wanted to address how to be a good, upright citizen.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming.
I think one reason that this speech is so immensely popular to this day is that it perfectly captures the spirit of anyone who tries to truly accomplish something great. You have to face difficulties, you have to overcome obstacles, you constantly have to deal with people who tell you you can't, you shouldn't, you won't succeed. But just the fact that you're at least trying already makes you better than those naysayers. When I face difficult times, I think back to these words and I ask myself, do I want to be the man on the sideline criticizing the man who's actually trying to do his deeds? Or do I want to be the man in the arena? And to me, the answer is always obvious. Last but not least, we have speech number 6 on our list of the greatest speeches of all times. And this one goes to Barack Obama and his 2004 address to the United States of America. This speech was delivered by Obama at the Democratic Convention to show his support of the back then presidential candidate John Kerry. Now keep in mind, this was 2004, so nobody knew who this Obama guy was. He was just a nobody senator from Illinois. But all of that was about to change thanks to his amazingly good speech. And many people said that this speech was the foundation on which he built his 2008 presidential campaign. Without this speech, President Obama never would have happened.
Now, even as we speak, there are those who are preparing to divide us. The spin masters, the negative ad peddlers, who embrace the politics of anything goes. Well, I say to them tonight, there is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America. There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America.
In terms of delivery, but also rhetorical skills, Obama is almost unmatched. I find it truly inspirational to listen to this speech and see how he uses his skills as a public speaker to bring together this so divided America. It honestly still gives me chills to listen to this young, vibrant, energetic Barack Obama and to the vision that he has for the United States of America. And that completes our list of the best speeches of all times. There are plenty of speeches that I could have included here that unfortunately I just didn't have the time to. But if you feel like one speech really is missing, then let me know down in the comments below and maybe I make a follow-up video. Thank you so much for watching and talk to you next time.